It's estimated that some water utilities could lose up to 50% of their operations team in the coming 15 years. Often referred to as a silver tsunami, the challenge of an ageing, soon-to-be retiring workforce will hit many companies beyond water in STEM-related industries: science, technology, engineering and maths. I'm curious how different professionals, young and more senior, view these challenges.
Something that we're seeing is this phrase that comes up like time and time again is around called the silver tsunami. A challenge facing a lot of water utilities, water companies that have an aging workforce soon to be retiring, that have phenomenal experience and skills, phenomenal. But unfortunately, if that's not passed back on to the younger generations or the team, and at the same time, water, as well as many other STEM industries, science, technology, engineering, maths, are facing a challenge in recruiting new people to the industry. But I'd love just to get your thoughts on this paradigm we're seeing and this gap that might emerge.
I agree, it's an enormous problem, and in fact you'll see in the Western society that as long as you want to grow economically, and we want to export more, so more and more people go working in export businesses, and we lose them for the public services. So we have to engage young people to let them know that if they want to be a real part of real importance to the world, it's not only economic growth, but it is also water.
Now, some people say that the water ecosystem, the water cycle is very broad, and digital plays a part in that, in helping with more data, helping to improve operational efficiency, right? A lot of people are saying this is an area that's sexy, with apps and data and new tech coming in and startups. Is that something that can be used to attract more talent to the industry?
Yeah, well, I think if we try to win from Apple and Microsoft with sexy, that in the water sector we never can win. On the other hand, I'm very skeptical because of this export economy we live in. We want always that the productivity is going to increase. And because of that, we lose a lot of people that cannot cope with the always increasing rat race of productivity in society. So it seems that we are doing the opposite. We are losing more and more people that become inactive, doing nothing, living from welfare, and smaller and smaller amount of people that have to work 5 times faster. So I think we must be careful with digitalization. And I don't think that digitalization is the sexy stick that we're going to get young people into the water sector. Of course, there are always people that want to have a sexy job. They probably don't go to water. But there are many people that can be inspired to be part of a public mission. And it is interesting that the whole water sector, also the startups, are already engaged people. Right. Because that the amount of effort you have to put into a water technology startup compared to a digital startup is much more. And if you then look at the thesis of Paul Gallagher, how many in the end become really the unicorns of the water sector? It's only a handful. And so the water sector, if you want to be in the water sector, you already have to be engaged in the first place. Well, we need to call also to the politicians and the public to understand that without the public services there is no society, and that we should reduce our attention to productivity increase for export, because that will in the end break our society. And in the second place, that we have to find a way that to bring all the people that cannot follow the rat race at this moment, bring them back into society and do their role, because that is an enormous workforce that we are not using at this moment. So those two things, that would be fantastic if that is improved in 2 years.
Ma, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. As you're aware and everyone's aware, there's this phrase that keeps going around the silver tsunami, around kind of this impeding challenge where a big part of the workforce is soon to be retiring. There's kind of various ways we can look at this, but from British Water, you'd say one solution is to kind of look at a diverse workforce as a way to counteract that problem.
We started with our Women in Water campaign a couple of years ago, and now we are moving into this diversity, but we need to start at some point and we need to start with something. So we believe that the Women in Water campaign has made a step change in the industry and is helping this woman to find a place in the industry, and we can help them with tips and tools for career development. You might know that the statistics in the industry, only 20% of the UK workforce in the water industry is female, and only 4% is from Black, Asian, and minorities and ethnic minorities. So we need to do something about these numbers. When I started in the industry as an engineer like 15 years ago, and also now many times I was the only woman in the room, but now things are changing. You can see more senior women in the industry. We have many CEOs from water companies that are female. One of the things that we can do, as you were mentioning, is to create these role models, because if you cannot identify and you cannot relate to who is on top, then you cannot feel that you can do it. And for me, it has helped me in my career many times, seeing other role models as women in seniority positions and taking the decisions in the room. So for me, it was okay, if they can do it, I can do it.
The organisation should reflect the community that it serves, right? Would you say that doesn't quite ring true for the water industry so far?
Well, the statistics. If only 20% of the workforce is female, it's not reflecting.
The community is not a 20% made up of female.
Yeah, it's not reflecting what it's in the society. It is demonstrated in research that more diverse teams have greater innovations and work better. So that's what we have to aim. So we really hope that the workforce of the water industry soon will reflect the communities that it serves. And this is our main goal.
I'm delighted to be here with Odwa Mtembu, Program Officer within Wetsus Foundation. Odwa, good to meet you finally at last. I know we've sort of been communicating and retweeting each other's stuff on the wonderful platform of Twitter. But I'd love to kind of get going, just to find out a bit more about what Wetsus is doing here, and especially over the last 2 weeks with your competition you've been running.
Thank you so much for having me, Tom. So Wetsus Foundation this past 2 weeks has been working with a diverse group of young professionals from all over the world, to name a few countries: South Africa, the Netherlands, Oman, Palestine, just to name a few. So these young professionals are students, some are working in the water sector, and some of them are not even working in the water sector, but their interest is within the water, energy, and the food nexus. The past 2 weeks, they've not only been connecting to build the Wetsus community as friends and colleagues, but it's been a very intense 2 weeks of coming with innovative, out-of-the-box solutions that can be scalable, that are economically feasible, and most importantly also do have a social and environmental context to it. So these solutions that I've been working on today, they were presented to a jury of 5 experts in the field from all over the world, where they had 2 minutes to pitch their solution. After that, take a Q&A session, which was 7 minutes from the jury. And then finally, they had to defend their posters to the jury, answer questions from the jury as well as from the audience on these 3 different cases that they were presented to them.
What we'd love to have your thoughts on. There's a big challenge in the industry at the moment when it comes to something called the silver tsunami. So an age force is working and actually bringing, how do we make the water sector more attractive to young professionals, right? And I think part of what you're doing is fantastic work. And what would you sort of advise on what we can do here?
So I think in terms of getting the water sector to be more attractive to the young people is that, one, the young people are already part of the sector. They are not just the future leaders of the sector or the world, they are the current leaders too, because we are in the field, they are educated, they are experts in that. But now with the young people, to make it more attractive and make it more diverse and inclusive, we need to make sure that the different opportunities, the working skill, the discipline allows them to be flexible. It allows them to tap into different disciplines within the sector, and most importantly, the information shared, the solutions being implemented, does include them from the planning process to the evaluation process, and lastly, is communicated in a much more easy manner that can be much more attractive to the young professionals. This can be art, this can be art in the form of the short films or documentaries or music, dance, so many ways. And what do young people love the most recently? Social media. We have to keep on changing and improving the way we are doing the process of the competition itself. Add some fun within the work there, and also increase what's in it for them beyond coming with these solutions. And that is obviously helping them improve their net worth, where they can get to meet the likes of Tom and interact with them and network with them and see what other opportunities they can build from that.
Well, listen, Odwa, amazing to kind of hear what Wetskills is doing here, and also beforehand your kind of personal journey into water. And I think the more we can do that and have that kind of cross-country, cross-culture, cross-industry collaboration, and actually bring more people into this industry, you know, this is the way it needs to go. So appreciate it, pal. Thank you. Okay, I'm joined by Ioana Dobrescu. There could be a major challenge in the next 10, 15 years. So with your many different hats that you wear and working with young professionals of today, how do you see this?
I definitely see it as a risk. Actually, a few days ago, in one of the panels I've been participating in with the water utilities, I've heard even figures being quoted of 30 to 50% of the skilled workforce leaving in the coming years. And the utilities facing a really big challenge in filling up those places. But from my perspective, this is actually a great opportunity because I think the reason why so far young people haven't come to the water sector was because they were perceiving it a bit as a very traditional, old school environment to work in. So then I believe that this is an opportunity to fill those spaces with young professionals that will also make the sector more attractive for other young professionals.
Do you think, I mean, you mentioned there's a perception of being a traditional, perhaps long asset life, infrastructure-based industry, but actually some of the new developments around digitalization and data and that kind of smarter side of increasing the optimizing assets. Is that the sexy part of the industry to bring them in?
Well, if you mention optimizing assets, I don't think that's really the word that's going to get a young professional attracted to the sector.
So what words should we use then? Which parts?
I think definitely using the word digitalization and telling them that, look, there's more to the water sector than, you know, sitting behind a computer and punching in data and watching processes, you know, taking their course. That there's also a place for the exciting technologies that are coming out of the technology sector, and that you also get the freedom to sort of experiment with these technologies, of course, before they're being implemented in the utilities sector. I think this will make it more attractive for young people. But besides digitalization, what I think will actually attract youth and young professionals is the connection with a meaning, a higher meaning. And this is where the utilities in the water sector should brand itself more, the same way that, you know, the big IT companies are doing. Water utilities have been proud that they haven't been visible so far, because that means they've done a good job. But I think that needs to change in the future, and to become more visible and to brand themselves to attract young people.
So looking ahead in terms of the positioning of the WWQA and Wetskills, in terms of how you're having to adapt to perhaps recruit people to you to then help equip them with the right skills as a water utility workforce of the future in other places, where do you see it going?
I think there's still a lot of work to be done. For example, in the World Water Quality Alliance, where I lead the youth platform, the main deliverable of the alliance is a baseline assessment of world water quality. So they're using the latest innovative technologies in terms of monitoring water quality, but also testing and combining it with data from the field. But I see that even within an alliance that has its own youth platform, these technologies and the information around these technologies has not been communicated to the youth and to the water youth groups. So this is what we're trying to do now to get the knowledge that's being used in the WWQA, and through the various youth groups that we have in our platform, which are covering a very broad geography, try to equitably distribute first access to that information, and then hopefully also enable the young people to use that knowledge and those technologies. So I think one of the major issues with digitalization in the future, just as with access to drinking water, in fact, is the equitable distribution of technologies.
Amazing. Well, that's quite the challenge, but also a huge opportunity as well. So I think one of the key messages to take away is to avoid phrases like optimizing assets, which you rightly pick me up on as language and as a communicator when you're trying to bring new people and new skills for the industry. But Ioana, always good to speak with you. Thanks for your insight and good luck with the WWQA and Wetsus moving forward.
So what can we do about the serious challenge of the silver tsunami in the water sector? Digitising can help make work more attractive and ensure knowledge is transferred, but it is not the ultimate solution. It seems much more important to make sure the industry remains socially relevant, and especially to better communicate this to younger generations, where the wider attraction is the purpose of helping to solve water, driven by the urgency of climate change. Furthermore, inclusiveness and international collaboration is a source of inspiration, and this should form the foundation to attract an influx of young talent.